Okay, Steeler Nation, you had your victory Tuesday. You got to celebrate. You got to wear your jersey at work. Let your coworkers know that you're a Steelers fan and they got a big one on Monday Night Football. But now it's time for the Steelers to get back to work, and that means we do the same thing right here in the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Today, I'm going to give you 3 ways the Steelers can run their offense in ways that help open up things for Najee Harris more. It's 3 ways to use him smarter, not harder, because he does have the second most touches in the NFL right now. There are ways that involve Matt Canada, Ben Roethlisberger, and the offensive line that can easily open up more opportunities for Najee Harris to be that explosive X factor player that changes games for the Steelers, even though he's already doing that with the opportunities that are in front of him. We're also going to talk a little bit more about the Steelers' pass defense and what they need to do moving forward to shore things up after Justin Fields gave them some tough outings. We're also going to talk about the Steelers' defense in shutting down running backs because there's some interesting numbers that might interest you in how they've done it so far. Again, I'm Chris Carter, the host of the Locked On Steelers podcast. We thank you for making Locked On Steelers your first listen every day, as we are free and available on all platforms. And this episode of the Locked On Steelers podcast is brought to you by McDonald's, proudly serving communities since 1965. McDonald's has been more than just a place to get tasty, affordable food. It's an unofficial community center. So a big thank you to our friends at McDonald's for always being there. I'm loving it. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, you can find this podcast on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Odyssey, and of course, YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hit the like button on this video if you're watching on YouTube. Share it with your friends. It always helps us out. Now, let's get into what I talked about earlier. I want to talk about Najee Harris because he's playing phenomenally. There's nothing wrong with Najee Harris himself. I mean, sure, there's times he can maybe pick a hole better here, pick a hole better there, but he's doing a great job with what he's being tasked with. The key for Najee Harris now is to keep doing what he's doing, keep improving his chemistry with his offensive line, with the rest of the offense, and the Steelers just need to continue to build around him. Now, that doesn't mean go out and sign crazy free agents because that time's pretty much done. The free agents that you needed to sign are signed up right now. The trade deadline's over, so they can't make a whole bunch of big personnel changes. Maybe Zach Banner gets worked into the lineup. I think it's past time for that. Zach Banner's a heck of a player, and he deserves his chance to get out there. But 3 things that the Steelers can do smarter, can work smarter, not harder, to get more out of Najee Harris. First of all, let's acknowledge what Najee Harris is doing right now, because I saw this in the middle of the Monday Night Football game where I saw a couple fans, or maybe not even fans, just haters on Najee Harris saying, "Oh, he's averaging less than like 3 yards per carry and all this other stuff." I'm like, okay, let's look at that, shall we? Because Najee Harris, yeah, sure, he doesn't have the highest yards per carry average. He's averaging 3.6 yards per carry right now, 67.6 rushing yards per game. But he also has the 8th most all-purpose yards in the NFL right now. Among rookies, he's second with 130 all-purpose yards, only to Jamar Chase, who has 180 or 842. So he's 12 yards off with 830 to 842. And Jamar Chase has played one more game than Najee Harris, which that will change after this next weekend, because he will play. Najee Harris will play against the Detroit Lions while Jamar Chase is on a bye week. So most likely, barring an injury, Najee Harris is going to pass Jamar Chase and have the most all-purpose yards for any rookies. But you look at other things that kind of evaluate what Najee Harris is doing this really well. For one, when you look at the yards after contact that he creates, he has the 6th most in the NFL, according to Pro Football Focus, at 398 yards. He also has 27 missed tackles forced, which is the 5th most in the NFL, again, according to Pro Football Focus. He's doing what he's supposed to. Here's how the Steelers can do more right by him. For one, and I talk about this in my latest Carter's Classroom on dkpittsburghsports.com. Go check this out for my film review where you can look at some of the plays I break down. For one, you can find more ways to open up defenses horizontally. because now people are going to say, well, horizontally, wait, I heard about open up vertically, but horizontally, that's crazy, Chris. No, hear me out here. One reason that Matt Canada loves to run his jet sweeps is because he wants to force defenders to have to worry about every single gap on the football field, whether it's the A gap, the B gap, the C gap, or out wide to the sideline, all the way out there. He wants them worrying about it. When you're running those jet sweeps, you're starting to create plays. And I talked about this in the post game a little bit for the Tuesday episode after the Bears game. But that first that touchdown that Najee Harris scored, it was partially because he did a great job on that, but partially because you look back at that play, you see some guys hesitating because the play before, James Washington took a jet sweep and went 12 yards and hurt him. And so now the linebackers, the safeties, they're not sure who to read. The offensive guards aren't pulling. It's not signaling where the Steelers are going, and it's giving them a little bit more tough times to do that. So one thing that has to happen is that there have to be smarter plays that are going to give Najee Harris better opportunities to force defenders into guessing games, which allows him to kind of hit the hole hard while the defense is too busy thinking and overthinking situations, so that he can kind of use his physical prowess, use his abilities to force more missed tackles, keep running downfield, and break off those big plays. The number two way to get this done for Najee Harris, and this is going to sound simple, but it's going to involve some more consistent blocking from the interior offensive line. The edges, I'm actually kind of fine with on the run blocking. Dan Moore Jr., for all his struggles in the pass blocking game, he's more consistent in the run blocking game. He comes down, he seals, he gets guys. That's where he's most comfortable. In his pass sets, he needs a lot of work. Chukuma Okorafor getting there a lot faster too. But what's really concerning for the Steelers moving forward is how the interior offensive line is working. And I wrote about this 2 weeks ago in Carter's Classroom on DKPittsburghSports.com. But my biggest thing with Kendrick Green up the middle is his hands. I know everyone looked at that Monday Night Football game and said, "Oh man, what's Kendrick doing? He's getting shoved in the backfield." First of all, he's a rookie. I asked Mike Tomlin about that on Tuesday, and he brought up, hey, the only way to get better at that is just to keep going to work every day. And a standard answer there, but he is right because Kendrick Green's a rookie. One thing to remember, he's not a traditional center, so he's not going to have all the technique down. But one thing that I said 2 weeks ago was that the thing I think that needs to be seeded most is better hands from Kendrick Green. Too many of those times when he's snapping the ball, he still hasn't gotten it down how to get his left hand up and inside and to create the leverage so that his right hand can get there, and his hands are fast enough to be able to stop interior defensive linemen from getting their hands inside on his frame and driving him back. Because as any offensive lineman, defensive lineman knows, one of the main hand battles is to simply get your hands inside the frame. You want them in the chest because when you have them here, you're controlling him. Kendrick Green has not been able to protect himself, especially in the hole. That is creating problems in the run game. That's making it harder for Najee Harris, because when you take away the interior A gaps, that's going to make it tougher for Najee Harris to pick where he wants to go. Now he has to bounce it out wide, wait to be a little bit more patient, and do more things that have to be creative on his end. So a lot of that might involve, hey, maybe if they're lining someone over top of Kendrick Green, you guys have a read where Kevin Dotson, Trey Turner, whichever direction that guy's going, you need to make sure that you have an extra body on him. You're helping Kendrick Green get off the line and make sure that his chest is exposed. But some of that is also just going to involve Kendrick Green having to get better at his job, because that's what they're going to need moving forward. But we will see how the Steelers continue to use that job, because I do think that there's a good chance that you'll see them try to help Kendrick in a little bit more. Sometimes that even involves maybe using him more like Marquise Pouncey, maybe calling more runs that bounce out wide, and you pull him, let him go lead block, and that's where he is really good. He can lead block in space, hit guys on the move, drive them while he's running. That's what you want to see from him. But you still need your center to be able to win those battles. We'll see if that changes. But the final way, and this is very serious, and it's going to sound very simple here, but the final way of the three ways to get more opportunities for Najee Harris is to throw the ball down the field. If you look back at this passing chart, and this is not to say that Ben Roethlisberger played a horrible game on Monday Night Football. I don't think he did. He didn't play a great game, but he played the efficient game that you kind of want from your quarterback with the way that he has been playing. But when you go back and you look at this game and you see the passing chart, he passed the ball 30 times in this game, completed 21 of those passes for about 202 yards, something like that. Of those 30 pass attempts, 7 of them traveled beyond 10 yards of the line of scrimmage. You are telling the defense to just play the underneath and do not be afraid of coming up to challenge Najee Harris because you're not going to hit them too many times. And what's crazy is he was actually efficient when he targeted 10 yards beyond the line of scrimmage. In fact, efficient in the task of hitting 5 of 7 of those passes for over 100 yards. I look at that and I see, hey, why not go back to that? The deep ball on the first drive to Chase Claypool, when he hit that, I was like, maybe he remembered this is what you need to do. But there wasn't more of that in this game, and that's where I think is the problem, because a lot of these defenses, they're coming out and they're saying, "Hey, we know Najee is the problem, so we're gonna work to take him away. We're gonna force Ben to beat us because he doesn't want to throw it deep to us or throw it deep passes." But again, this is why you have to make them think more. It's about smarter, not harder. Those jet sweeps, those reverses, as I broke down in the film, it forces those defenders to have to think, "Oh wait, I have to mind this gap. I have to mind that gap. I have to mind that gap." And you see the times where they flow with Najee Harris too hard. The jet sweep around Deontay Johnson can get some big plays. Eric Ebron got a touchdown because the entire defense went with Najee Harris. Eric Ebron, boop, just got a one-on-one to the end zone, was able to beat one guy, got the touchdown. Happened in this last game, too. The Steelers got over 30 yards in jet sweeps in this last game, and they came because the entire defense was focused on Najee Harris, and it opened up opportunities for other guys. Chase Claypool, Deontay Johnson, James Washington, all of them had a jet sweep that, or a reverse of some kind, that went for more than 10 yards. You hit those more, you find that balance more, you're going to open up more opportunities for Najee Harris to increase those missed tackles force, to increase his yards after contact. Because here's the thing, a lot of those contacts, they're happening at the line of scrimmage, behind the line of scrimmage. Najee Harris still forging forward, still pushing forward, getting the job done. But you can help him out a little bit more by being just a little bit more creative. One, in how you design different run plays to stretch defenses out. Two, how you protect Kendrick Green from giving up his hands, because he's obviously struggling with winning those hand battles on the inside and getting those at anchor power up the middle. And three, simply enough, Ben Roethlisberger just throwing the ball deeper, challenging defenses, forcing those linebackers and safeties to think a little bit more so Najee Harris can get going. So those are my top 3 reasons, or top 3 ways the Steelers can use Najee Harris smarter, not harder. Let me know what you think. Are there more things that you think the Steelers should be doing? To hit me on Twitter and Instagram at Carter Critiques. We're not nearly done here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, so don't you go anywhere. But I do want to tell you all about our friends at Get Upside. Hey, Steelers fans, this is Chris Carter with an incredible app everyone who buys gas needs to know about. It's called Get Upside. My listeners are making up to 25 cents for every gallon of gas every time they fill up. Just download the free Get Upside app on the App Store or Google Play right now. Use promo code TOUCHDOWN to get a bonus 25 cents per gallon on your first fill up. That's up to 50 cents cash back. Don't pay full price at the pump anymore. Get cash back using Get Upside. Just download the app for free and use promo code TOUCHDOWN to get 50 cents per gallon cash back on your first tank. Some people who drive a lot are making as much as $200 to $300 a month in cash back, and there's no catch. The cash back goes right to your account. You can cash out anytime for your bank account, PayPal, or an e-gift card for Amazon or other brands. Just download the free Get Upside app today and use promo code TOUCHDOWN to get 50 cents per gallon cash back on your first tank. Again, that's promo code TOUCHDOWN on the Get Upside app. Back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, I'm your host, Chris Carter. We're keeping it rolling here on the Wednesday episode of Locked On Steelers. Now, I do apologize. I'm gonna have more guests on Wednesdays, but we've been little time constraints have kind of caused some things here. I had to cover Pitt basketball Tuesday night. That was a disaster, by the way. And so after Monday Night Football and Tuesday Night Basketball, Chris Carter's had a lot to do. So we cranking out this episode late in the middle of the night just for y'all, because we got to get we want to make sure we keeping out the content fresh. We keeping y'all hitting you with more analysis so that you know more about your Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, let's keep it rolling. I want to talk about this defense because in this last game, I brought this up briefly. It was just based off of brief live analysis from watching it from the press box at Heinz Field. And that's not always accurate live look because you're way up high in the press box. You think you see something. It's great for field vision, like seeing where the safeties are lined up and seeing the field like that. But it's tougher for like the minute details. So you get a little bit of time. Now, I will say this. Um, what typically would be helpful with that is the all 22, but the all 22 for NFL Game Pass has been garbage this year. We can barely use it. It's not been available on time. It's still not available for the Steelers Bears game last time I checked. And shout out to Minka Fitzpatrick's mom, by the way, at Mink Melissa on Twitter. She said, why can't I find the all 22 on Game Pass this year? Rolls eyes emoji. I feel you, Miss Fitzpatrick. That's a lot right there. So yeah, a lot of people who have Game Pass, we are very upset with the NFL. They need to get it together because we would like to get what we paid for with the all 22. But back to what I was saying here. In this game, you had some tough situations in coverage. You had some plays where you kind of got exposed for what you were trying to do. And I brought this up a little bit the week before. If you remember what I'm talking about, you know what I'm about to say. But one thing the Steelers were doing for weeks was having Minkah Fitzpatrick be the safety that sort of trailed over top of the cornerback the Steelers or that were most scared of giving up the big play, or not even the cornerback, but the weapon that the Steelers were most scared would beat them for the big play. Whether it was Darren Waller against the Raiders or Jarvis Landry against the Browns, that's what he was doing. And it works to an extent. The Steelers have been able to limit a lot of those big players on a lot of teams this year. But in this game, the Steelers elected to kind of free up Minkah Fitzpatrick just a little bit more and let those corners run. Those corners specifically starts with Arthur Mullett. Now in this game, Arthur Mullett was targeted 4 times, allowed 3 catches for 64 yards, an average of 21.3 yards per reception when he was targeted. Also gave up a touchdown. By far gave up the highest passer rating of any Steelers defender on the field. But I look at this and I just saw like on the deep ball to Allen Robinson on the corner, you didn't see help coming his way. Now, when I asked Mike Tomlin this on Monday night after the game at Heinz Field, he brought up, hey, this was more about stopping Justin Herbert. He's a fast quarterback. We had to dedicate more guys to that. That means if ipso facto, you're gonna have not have as many guys being able to help other positions, and guys are going to have to win one-on-ones. When I kind of readdressed it with Tomlin on Tuesday, at first he didn't know what I was talking about, but when I reminded of what he said Monday night, he brought up, yeah, guys are going to have to win matchups. They trust Cam Sutton with what he can do. And I asked, is seeing him in the slot more of something that you could expect moving forward? Because you look at what Arthur Mullett it severely cost the Steelers. And Arthur Mullett, I think, has done a decent job this year in playing the slot, being aggressive when need be, but he's done it when he's had help behind him, specifically behind him, not just generally there's always safeties behind you, but knowing that, hey, Minkah Fitzpatrick's got my back, I'm going to play this a little bit harder. That's where I see problems here moving forward, and the problems stem when you look at Arthur Mullett and you're like, okay, well, simple. Yeah, you just bump Cam Sutton inside. Well, James Pierre goes on the outside. And as much as I know Tony Serrano loves some James Pierre, and I think James Pierre is balling, he's fighting, he's doing some great stuff. He had forced that fumble on special teams, had the interception to close out the Broncos. He does some good things there, but at the same time, he's also been beat there. And when you leave him by himself, that might be a lot to ask. But hey, maybe not. Maybe they think James Pierre is more consistent outside than Arthur Mullett is in the slot. We will certainly find out. But I continue to look at this secondary, and I don't think this secondary is bad per se. I just think that they haven't found the ways to kind of mask their weaknesses yet. Minkah Fitzpatrick's still a heck of a safety. Terrell Evans still, I think, a very good role playing, strong safety. I think Joe Hayden is still a decent quarterback, more than a decent cornerback. I think that he gets the job done more often than not. But you gotta find ways to be able to win those situations and to allow Minkah Fitzpatrick to be the X factor type of player, but also not compromising yourself by giving up big plays like that over the middle and leaving guys in single coverage who can't win in single coverage. We will see what that adjustment is. The Steelers get to play the Lions coming up, but the Lions have some interesting weapons to them. They're not as much a receiver team as they are a tight end and running back team. We're going to get to some aspects of how that could really play into this next game Sunday at Heinz Field. But first, I'm going to tell you guys about Built Bar. Built Bar is the best tasting protein bar ever. If you haven't tried a Built Bar by now, you are missing out. They say it's a protein bar, but it does not taste like one. You have to try one of these amazing bars for yourself to believe it. Most protein bars are chalky or waxy or just plain hard to choke down, but a Built Bar is soft, covered in 100% real chocolate. And when you bite into it, you know you're eating something different. It's more than an experience, it's one that you'll enjoy. In fact, you'd swear you're eating a candy bar. Built Bars are low carb, low calorie, low fat, low sugar, and high in protein. All the healthy benefits on top of just being purely delicious. And there's so many flavors. When you go to Built Bar, you can check out all the different flavors like coconut, raspberry, mint brownie, coconut almond, salted caramel, double chocolate, and cherry barcia. This month, Built is coming out with new limited time flavors every 3 to 4 days. So be sure to check out the website often. You don't want to miss out by going to built.com. Use promo code LOCK15. That's LOCKED 15 LOCK15, and you'll get 15% off your next order. Again, that's promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at built.com. Back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, I'm your host, Chris Carter. We're keeping it rolling here, wrapping things up here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Now, I want to talk to you all about a facet of the Steelers defense that I think is getting overlooked a bit. Now, it's not just a player, it's not just a scheme, it's how they're reacting to a certain position, and that's been the running back position. Now, TJ Hawkinson, that guy for the Lions tight end position, we know tight end in the past has given the Steelers problems, but recently they've done moderately better in covering tight ends. They have Terrell Edmonds, they have Devin Bush. Those two guys will help out a lot in that respect. We'll see how that plays out. But the Steelers defending running backs is going to be a big question in this game because DeAndre Swift has been a heck of a playmaker for the Lions. He makes plays with the ball in his hands. He makes plays with the ball without it in his hands. He can get open for Jared Goff and make things happen. But this is going to be a test for the Steelers because they've been one of the better run defending teams. To this day, the Steelers have only given up 2 rushing touchdowns this season. That is tied for the lowest in the league. Now, they're not doing tremendous in the rushing yards allowed category. They give up 737 so far. But they are making it hard for running backs to get on the board. And again, those numbers of them getting on the board, that was 2 rushing touchdowns. They haven't given up a receiving touchdown to a running back yet this season. Only the Arizona Cardinals is the other team that hasn't given up a touchdown reception to a running back this season. That's impressive. So when I look at the Steelers' makeup on defense, you're probably asking, okay, Chris, all this is well and dandy. All these stats are fine and dandy. What's doing this? What is helping this? Well, funny you should ask. Because I said about 2 weeks ago, right on this podcast, made a whole episode about why Devin Bush isn't a bust. And there are times that, yes, he doesn't make the big play that you want him to. But there's a lot of reasons that no running backs have popped off on the Steelers for crazy numbers. Because consistently, he's in the right place. He's doing what he's supposed to do. And there's some days where that consistency breaks. But he's been a big help in keeping things in check against the running backs here with the Steelers. But again, no receiving touchdowns, 2 rushing touchdowns. I think the Steelers are doing it right. DeAndre Swift is going to be a challenge, though. Jared Goff finds different ways to make him a security blanket. That's something that I would I'd be prepared for. Be prepared for if I'm the Steelers. We'll certainly get to see how they play out. But don't look now. You go back and you look at some of the grades. I know some people saw some bad grades for Devin Bush in recent weeks, but four tackles in this game, nothing spectacular. Did have a big breakup on a deep ball that was important, and I think that's a lot of people are overlooking that play specifically. Excuse me, 3 tackles. So 3 tackles and a big pass defense. He's not a supreme playmaker yet. He's not a pick six guy yet, but I do think he's going to get back there. Just got to give him time. But again, I look around at what the Steelers have been doing on defense. Even in this game, he was targeted 6 times, gave up 5 receptions. Devin Bush, that is. But he was able to, for the most part, keep those receptions in check. It didn't crush the Steelers. He moves around the field for a reason. And he's tackling at a very good rate. He didn't have a miss in this game. In fact, the Steelers' only 2 misses in this game came, crazy enough, from Cam Hayward, who's just a beast, and you forgive that, and Chris Wormley. But Devin Bush, this Steelers defense, they're doing a phenomenal job keeping running backs in check. We'll see if that continues Sunday when they take on DeAndre Swift, because I'm telling y'all, he's a very good running back. I liked him a lot coming out of Georgia. And the positive things I keep hearing about him this year make me think, you know what? Maybe there's something more there. But we'll certainly find out. We got crossover Thursday coming up right here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. We're going to have Matt Deary, host of the Locked On NFL or Locked On Lions podcast, joining me tomorrow to break things down, getting you ready for this big time matchup. So stay tuned here with the Locked On Steelers podcast. Remember, we're on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Odyssey, and of course, YouTube. Hit like on this video if you enjoyed it. Hit the subscribe button to our YouTube channel for more content like it. We do Monday through Friday here, sometimes on Sunday, depending on how late the game goes. But we appreciate all of our listeners and everyone here that enjoys the show, helps us out, interacts with us. It makes the show a lot more fun. We appreciate y'all when y'all pull that off. Now, if you want to help out the Locked On Steelers podcast, one thing you can do, leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts with a positive comment. That helps us out. That's one way to help us out. Again, if you want to really help us out with YouTube, hit the like button, hit the share button, hit the subscribe button. All those things, they go a long way to making us a little bit better. But like I said, we got Locked On Lions joining the show tomorrow. And of course, Jenna Harner wrapping up the week for an exciting week here at the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm Chris Carter. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Carter Critiques. Thanks again for listening/watching. Be back in your ears and on your screens very soon.